Here we are, the fourth episode of Faithful Resistance, and the hits to our government just keep coming. This week began with gutting the Voice of America broadcast network, ignoring court orders restricting deportation, something new and awful every day. So what can we do about it? How can any of us resist? Well, we're going to start today by talking just for a second about what resisting means. I know my first mental picture of resisting is protests, marches, placards, bullhorns. And there are many among us, and thank goodness there are, who are willing to take their resistance to the streets. And there'll be an opportunity for that this week. But that is certainly not the only way to resist. I found this great list. 1, you can be a digital warrior. You can fact-check outrageous social media posts to expose misinformation. You can offer your own well-reasoned, impassioned, factually accurate posts yourself. Heck, you could host a podcast. Or you can be an artistic activist, tell stories, write songs, make protest signs that get noticed. Resistance is not only for the loud and the bold. For example, you can be a community builder, work with mutual aid networks, host a class on Know Your Rights for immigrants, cook for a day shelter. You'll have a chance to do that at our church coming up, and hear from someone who walks the talk of community building every day. All of us can find something meaningful to do to resist. Which brings us to this week's opportunities for action. Friday, March 21st, Bernie Sanders and AOC bring the Fighting Oligarchy Tour to Colorado. The first one is in Greeley at the Bank of Colorado Arena. Doors open at 12 for the 1 o'clock rally. The second is at Denver's Civic Center Park at 5 o'clock. They say doors open, although I don't know what doors, at 4 o'clock. An organizer asking that you do not bring signs. As community organizers decry the arrest of Denver immigrant rights activist Jeanette Vizquera, they're circulating an online petition demanding her release. You can sign it. You'll find a link to the petition in the description on the YouTube page. You may have heard of Vizquera. She took refuge in First Unitarian in Denver for several years to avoid deportation and is an outspoken critic of this country's immigration policies. Monday, March 24th, you can attend an immigrant rights information session at Shorter AME Church in Denver. It goes from 6:30 to 8:30. The 24th is also a March Mobilizing Monday at JUC. To support Arvada Rising's day shelter for the unhoused, Monday's 6 o'clock gathering is to make desserts for the program. Why, you might ask, why is making cookies or cakes resisting? Well, it's community building. It's something Karen Cowling has been doing every day for years as head of Arvada Rising. When we say faithful resistance, we're talking about ways to fight back against the current administration because we believe it's hurting ordinary Americans and especially hurting those on the margins, the unhoused, the immigrants, people who don't have a voice. Now, our guest today is from Arvada Rising, which has been doing their work with people on the margins for a very long time, way before the second administration. I'd like to welcome you, Karen, for talking to us. And would you start by saying what kind of work you all do?
Well, we are a day shelter and housing navigation center that serves the unhoused in Jefferson County. Last year, we served approximately 1,400 unique individuals.
Who helps you do this? I think it's not your church alone.
No, we have a very tiny congregation. It's actually the community at large. We have about 20 other churches that plug in and help support us with volunteers, donations, in-kind donations, etc. And just to do the work that we do every day. And then we have other community members.
And you're doing more than just day shelter. People don't just come in and sit there for the day. You're providing services. So would you talk a little bit about the services you provide?
So we are a day shelter, which is for basic needs. So we serve 2 hot meals a day, breakfast and lunch. We have showers, we have laundry services, and we have a clothing bank. So that's basic needs. And then we also are a navigation center for housing. So we have every service on site inside of our church, actually, to help people move beyond their circumstances and get into more stabilized housing situations. We have a workforce program, we have free legal services, we have case managers that do wraparound services, and help people get into permanent housing options.
Now, I want to say that for myself, I know I get most of my information about what's happening in the country and in the community, for that matter, from the news, but you're getting your information from working with people directly, face to face. And I wondered if you have any observations about if anything has changed for you and your services in the last 6 weeks since the administration.
We have heard rumors that there might be some immigration, ICE sort of folks coming around, but we haven't seen any of that activity ourselves, but we do have a protocol in place in case that would happen. I just know that our numbers continue to go up. It's not, homelessness is not going away right now. It's exponential. And we are also serving a lot of immigrant families through our food pantry on Saturdays. So we don't really have a lot of immigrants that come through our day shelter Monday through Friday, but a lot of immigrant families on our pantry.
I'm sure that you talk about not only day-to-day work with your people, but about the current climate in the country or in Colorado, that it has to come up. At least if you're anything at all like me, I know a lot of us have been talking just practically nonstop about the situation. What are your concerns?
I mean, I do have concerns that funding sources could diminish depending on what decisions are made. And we were already struggling. I mean, we rely a lot on obviously donations, but also on grants.
Why do you do what you do? Why do you put your heart and soul into this?
Well, as Christians, we're called to come alongside those who are hurting. And our mission statement is helping the poor, the homeless, the marginalized, and the forgotten with the love of Jesus Christ. So it's really a calling on our lives. And we feel like we're just going to keep doing what we're doing as long as God's directing us in that way.
What help do you need? If there are people watching the podcast who say to themselves, I want to do something and I don't know what to do. And maybe they're not the type to go to a rally every second weekend on the steps of the state capitol. They want to do something else. Can you use more volunteers? What do you need?
Yeah, we're boots on the ground. So if people are looking to be active in terms of serving the unhoused, immigrant families, etc., we're a good place to come and do that. It takes about 20 volunteers a day to run our day shelter, and I failed to mention that this current winter, we actually have a third program besides our day shelter and our food pantry. We have overnight sheltering. So there's always a need for overnight guests to be cared for. Also, our overnight shelter takes about 20 volunteers a night to run that program. We always need administrative support, support in the kitchen, support with organization. We get a lot of donations, support with case management, support with food, cleaning up, all that stuff. Yeah.
And what kind of training do you give your people? I know if I was going to walk into a situation where I've never worked with the unhoused before, I'll be honest, and I wouldn't want to say something stupid or hurtful. So how do you talk to your volunteers about interacting?
Yeah. So we have a pretty thorough volunteer intake process. They go through our regular orientation, which is also the orientation that our clients go through. But then with the volunteers, we also go into trauma-informed care, exactly what you said, how to interact, how to not further trigger clients, how to honor them. And then in terms of, the volunteer positions, there's so many. Some are front facing with clients, some are not.
And to get started, go to a website, I bet.
arvadarising.com. You could also email my volunteer coordinator, which is Vera, VEAR at arvadarising.com.
Thank you. Thanks for the ideas. Thanks for the inspiration. Thanks for the work that you all do.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Have a great week.
Before we go on, here's a shout out to a lot of people at JUC who work every week to help Arvada Rising, cooking and baking, a great couple of teams. A couple of more things before we wrap up. The Mobilizing Monday at JUC on March 31st will be protest safety training. You're also encouraged to call your members of Congress to voice your strong opinions about things. There's quite a list to choose from these days. Check out 5calls.org to find the best way to make contact. Also, I want to point out that the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, UUSC, has launched a resistance network to connect people of faith and conscience to urgent advocacy and direct action. You can join that network at uusc.org. And if you have ideas about events to put on the calendar or passionate folks to talk to, please email faithfulresistance@jeffersonunitarian.org. In the meantime, find your own way to resist. March, rally, fact-check Facebook posts that you know are misleading. Write your own, make a protest placard, join a boycott, heck, make cookies for a day shelter. Find a way to push back and do the next right thing. Go out and do the next right thing.